On a quiet June morning in 2009, an elderly man stepped off a bus into the small coastal town of Sligo, Ireland. He carried only a worn black shoulder bag and a purple plastic shopping bag. To everyone around him, he looked like an ordinary tourist. Polite, calm, quiet. Nothing about him suggested that within just a few days, he would become one of the greatest unidentified person mysteries in modern Europe. When he checked into a local hotel, he signed the register with a name, Peter Bergmann. It seemed ordinary, but investigators would later discover something chilling. That name didn't belong to him. In fact, it didn't appear to belong to anyone. Over the next 3 days, security cameras captured him walking through the streets of Sligo again and again. Each time he carried the same purple plastic bag. Each time, he disappeared into areas without surveillance cameras. And each time he returned, the bag was noticeably lighter. No one knew what he had thrown away. No one ever found everything he discarded. It was almost as if someone was carefully erasing every trace that they had ever existed. Then, without speaking to anyone about his plans, he walked toward a quiet beach. He removed his clothes, folded them neatly, stepped into the cold Atlantic Ocean, and never came back alive. When authorities recovered his body, they expected to identify him within hours. Instead, they uncovered a mystery that has survived for more than 15 years. No passport, no driver's license, no wallet, no phone, no family, no fingerprints matching any international database, no missing person report. Even the labels inside his clothing had been carefully cut away. Who was Peter Bergmann? Why did he spend days destroying his own identity? Was he hiding from someone? Or protecting someone? And how is it possible for a man to disappear from history before he was even dead? This is the story of the man who planned every detail of his final days, except one. The world would never learn his real name. On Friday, June 12, 2009, the man arrived in Sligo after traveling across Ireland by bus. Witnesses later described him as being around 60 years old. He was approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with short gray hair and a slim build. His appearance was clean and respectable. Nothing about him suggested homelessness or poverty. He spoke fluent English with what several witnesses believed was a German or Austrian accent. That detail would later become one of the biggest clues in the investigation. After arriving in town, he walked to the Sligo City Hotel. At reception, he calmly introduced himself. "My name is Peter Bergmann." He wrote down an address in Vienna, Austria. The receptionist had no reason to question him. Everything seemed perfectly normal. He paid in cash. He carried no obvious luggage except for the black shoulder bag and the purple plastic bag. No credit card. No passport was requested because, under the hotel's procedures at the time, cash-paying guests were not always required to present one. He requested a room for 3 nights. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, just another visitor spending a weekend in Western Ireland. Or so everyone believed. The receptionist would later tell investigators that he appeared relaxed, polite, and surprisingly friendly. He even chatted briefly about the weather. Looking back, nothing in that conversation hinted that he was carefully executing what appeared to be a meticulously planned final mission. At first, Peter Bergmann's stay in Sligo appeared completely ordinary. He left his hotel several times each day, usually carrying the same purple plastic shopping bag. Nothing about those walks seemed unusual. But after his body was identified as an unknown man, detectives began reviewing hours of CCTV footage from across the town. That's when they noticed a pattern. Every single time Bergmann left the hotel, the purple bag looked full. Every single time he returned, it looked noticeably lighter. Investigators traced his movements from one camera to another. Again and again, he deliberately walked beyond the reach of surveillance cameras. Those blind spots weren't random. He appeared to know exactly where the cameras ended. Minutes later, he would reappear on another camera, still carrying the same bag, but with less inside. Police believe he was disposing of his belongings little by little in public trash bins scattered throughout Sligo. Unfortunately, by the time investigators realized what had happened, most of those bins had already been emptied and their contents transported to landfills. Whatever he threw away was gone forever. The CCTV footage revealed something else that was even more unsettling. Bergmann never seemed lost. Although he had supposedly just arrived in a town he had never visited before, he walked with confidence. He rarely stopped to look around. He didn't study maps. He didn't ask pedestrians for directions. He moved through Sligo almost as if he had planned every route long before he ever arrived. Detectives later questioned whether he had visited the town in the past, or whether he had carefully studied it beforehand. Every decision appeared deliberate. Every movement seemed calculated. Nothing suggested panic. Nothing suggested confusion. Instead, investigators saw the behavior of someone patiently following a plan that only he understood. Then they made another disturbing discovery. Throughout his entire stay, Bergmann barely interacted with anyone. He didn't make phone calls. He didn't send letters. He didn't use the internet. He didn't meet friends. No one came looking for him. It was as though he had entered Sligo completely alone and intended to leave the same way. The deeper investigators looked, the more impossible the mystery became. Why would an ordinary tourist spend 3 days secretly disposing of personal belongings? What exactly was inside those bags? Documents? Photographs? Medical records? Or something else entirely? No one knows. Because whatever Peter Bergmann threw away may have been the only evidence capable of revealing who he really was. And by the time police understood what they were looking at, that evidence had already disappeared forever. As investigators continued reviewing surveillance footage, another team carefully examined Peter Bergmann's hotel room. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. The room was tidy. The bed had been used. There were no signs of violence, no handwritten notes, no obvious clues explaining why he had come to Sligo. But the longer detectives searched, the stranger everything became. Inside the room, they found only a small number of personal belongings. There were a few neatly folded clothes, some basic toiletries, and several unopened items that suggested he had no intention of staying for long. What they did not find was even more important. There was no passport, no driver's license, no bank cards, no family photographs, no address book, no notebook, no mobile phone, no laptop, nothing that could reveal who he really was. For someone traveling internationally, the absence of identification was almost impossible to explain. Then investigators discovered another unusual detail. Nearly every piece of clothing he had left behind had its manufacturer labels carefully removed. The labels hadn't simply fallen off. They had been deliberately cut out with a sharp object. Even the labels inside his underwear had been removed. To detectives, this wasn't random behavior. It suggested careful planning. Removing clothing labels makes it much harder for investigators to trace where garments were purchased or manufactured. On its own, that detail might not have meant much, but combined with the false name, the missing identification, the cash payments, and the repeated disposal of personal belongings, it painted a disturbing picture. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to erase every possible clue about their identity. Investigators also reviewed the hotel's records. During his stay, Bergmann had very little contact with other guests. He didn't spend time socializing. He didn't invite anyone to his room. He didn't receive visitors. Staff remembered him as polite, but reserved. Nothing about his behavior suggested fear or panic. Instead, he appeared calm, patient, almost as if every hour of his stay had already been planned in advance. One employee later recalled seeing him reading newspapers in the hotel lobby. Another remembered brief, friendly conversations. There was nothing to suggest that he believed he was being followed or watched. If he was hiding from someone, he never showed it. But detectives couldn't ignore one question. Why would a man work so hard to remove every trace of his identity if he expected to return home? The evidence pointed in another direction. It looked increasingly likely that Peter Bergmann never intended to leave Sligo alive. And if that was true, then everything he had done over the previous 3 days had been part of a carefully planned final chapter. But investigators still had no idea what would happen next. The answer would come on a quiet beach, just outside the city. By Sunday morning, June 14th, 2009, Peter Bergmann's stay in Sligo was coming to an end. He checked out of the hotel just before 1 p.m. As always, he remained calm. He thanked the receptionist, picked up his belongings, and walked out the front door. Nothing about his behavior suggested urgency, or fear, or regret. Security cameras captured him leaving the hotel for the final time. Unlike the previous days, he was carrying very little. The purple plastic bag that had once appeared full was now nearly empty. Whatever he had spent days discarding was gone. From there, Bergmann made his way through the town before eventually taking a taxi toward Ross's Point, a quiet coastal village just outside Sligo. During the drive, he spoke briefly with the taxi driver. According to the driver's later statement, Bergmann appeared relaxed and polite. There was no sign that anything was wrong. When they arrived, Bergmann asked to be dropped near the beach. The driver watched him walk away. That was the last confirmed conversation anyone would ever have with him. The weather that afternoon was calm. A few people were walking along the shoreline. Others were enjoying the view of the Atlantic Ocean. Several witnesses later remembered seeing an older man sitting alone near the beach. Nothing about him seemed unusual. He wasn't crying. He wasn't asking for help. He wasn't acting strangely. He simply appeared to be resting. At some point, Bergmann removed most of his clothing. He folded the garments neatly and left them on the beach. To many investigators, that detail stood out immediately. People acting impulsively rarely stop to arrange their belongings with such care. Everything suggested intention. Everything suggested preparation. A short time later, witnesses noticed him entering the water. At first, no one reacted. Swimming in the sea was not uncommon. But as the minutes passed, something felt wrong. People realized the man was no longer moving normally. Concern quickly turned into alarm. Emergency services were called. Local volunteers rushed to help. His body was recovered from the water soon afterward. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence that another person had been involved at the scene. At first glance, it appeared to be a drowning. But when investigators began examining who the man was, the real mystery finally began. Because the person lying before them wasn't Peter Bergmann. At least, not according to any official record that existed anywhere in the world. Retention bridge. The investigation should have ended with a routine identification. Instead, it became an international mystery. Every database was searched. Every fingerprint was compared. Every lead was followed. Yet the man's true identity remained hidden. How could someone erase themselves so completely? That question would soon lead investigators to one of the most baffling unidentified person cases in modern European history. When Peter Bergmann's body was brought to the hospital, investigators expected the mystery to end quickly. In most unidentified person cases, the victim's identity is established within hours. A wallet, a passport, a driver's license, a missing person report. Usually, one of those pieces is enough. But this case was different. Doctors carried out a full post-mortem examination, hoping it would provide answers. Instead, it raised even more questions. The first conclusion was straightforward. The official cause of death was drowning. There were no injuries indicating that he had been assaulted, no defensive wounds, no evidence that he had been restrained or forced into the water. Nothing suggested the involvement of another person at the beach. But the medical examination revealed several unexpected findings. Peter Bergmann was suffering from serious health problems. Doctors found signs of advanced prostate cancer that had spread beyond its original location. Medical experts also noted evidence of ischemic heart disease, a condition that reduces blood flow to the heart. Despite these illnesses, investigators found something surprising. He wasn't carrying any prescription medication. No painkillers, no treatment records, no medical documents. For someone with advanced cancer, that was highly unusual. The examination also showed that he had undergone medical treatment at some point in the past. Small surgical scars were visible on his body. These were not recent injuries. They suggested he had received professional medical care before arriving in Ireland. Yet there was still no way to determine where that treatment had taken place. Investigators then moved to the next step: fingerprint analysis. His fingerprints were entered into national and international databases. Nothing. No match. Next came dental records. Again, nothing. DNA samples were collected and preserved for future comparison. Police worked with international agencies, including Interpol, hoping another country might recognize the man. No confirmed identification ever came back. Detectives searched missing person reports from Ireland, the United Kingdom, Germany, Austria, and many other European countries. Still nothing. It was as though this man had never officially existed. Then investigators remembered another crucial detail: the address he had written on the hotel registration form in Vienna. Officers contacted Austrian authorities. The street existed, but the address itself did not. There was no resident named Peter Bergmann, no record connected to the information he had provided. The name, the address, and the identity were all false. At that moment, the investigation changed completely. This was no longer a routine identification. Police were now searching for a man who had deliberately hidden every trace of his past before his death. The question was no longer, who died on Ross's Point Beach? The question became, why did he make absolutely certain that no one would ever know? And that mystery would soon give rise to theories ranging from terminal illness to espionage, to a final act of sacrifice. But separating fact from speculation would prove far more difficult than anyone expected. Retention bridge. The evidence clearly showed that Peter Bergmann had carefully erased his identity. But investigators still couldn't answer the most important question. Was he running away from someone? Or was he making sure no one else would suffer after he was gone? The theories that followed would divide investigators, journalists, and true crime researchers for years. By now, investigators had exhausted nearly every conventional method of identification. Fingerprints had produced no matches. The DNA profile was preserved for future comparison, but no immediate identification was possible. The name, Peter Bergmann, led nowhere. The Vienna address he had written at the hotel didn't exist. It was as if every path investigators followed simply disappeared. Police then widened the investigation beyond Ireland. Through Interpol and international police networks, they circulated photographs of the man, hoping someone, somewhere, would recognize him. His image appeared in newspapers. Television programs covered the case. Appeals were translated into multiple languages. Authorities asked a simple question: do you know this man? Thousands of people saw his face. No one could confidently identify him. Several tips came in over the following months. Some believed he resembled a missing relative. Others thought they had met him while traveling. Every credible lead was investigated. None of them led to a confirmed identity. Detectives returned to the CCTV footage once again. They replayed every movement, every stop, every decision. They hoped they had overlooked something, but the recordings only reinforced what they already suspected. This man wasn't acting randomly. He appeared organized, methodical, patient. Almost every decision seemed intentional. He left behind just enough information to create a trail, but never enough to reveal who he really was. And that raised an unsettling possibility. Perhaps Peter Bergmann hadn't wanted to disappear completely. Perhaps he wanted people to know that someone had disappeared, just not who. That single distinction has fascinated investigators and true crime researchers ever since. When a mystery remains unsolved for years, theories inevitably begin to fill the silence. In Peter Bergmann's case, dozens have been proposed. Some sound plausible, others belong more to fiction than fact. But it's important to separate evidence from speculation. The first, and perhaps strongest theory, is that Bergmann knew he was dying. The autopsy confirmed that he suffered from advanced prostate cancer, along with significant heart disease. Some investigators believe he chose to spend his final days alone, far from anyone who knew him. If that theory is correct, removing labels from his clothing, destroying documents, and using a false identity may have been his way of ensuring no family member would have to witness his final decline. However, there is no evidence proving this was his intention. Another theory suggests he may have worked in intelligence or a profession requiring secrecy. Supporters point to his disciplined behavior, his apparent awareness of CCTV cameras, and the deliberate removal of identifying information. But once again, there is no verified evidence that links him to any intelligence agency. It remains only a theory. Others have suggested he may have been fleeing criminal organizations. Yet investigators found no signs that he was being followed. No reports of threats, no evidence of violence. Nothing in the official investigation supports that conclusion. In the end, every theory explains part of the mystery, but none explains all of it, and that's exactly why the case continues to puzzle investigators even today. More than 15 years have passed since an unknown man walked into a hotel in Sligo and called himself Peter Bergmann. Technology has advanced, DNA science has improved, new identification methods have solved cases once thought impossible, yet this mystery remains. His fingerprints still match no known identity. His DNA has never been publicly linked to a missing person. No relative has come forward with conclusive proof. No government has claimed him, and no one has explained why he spent his final days carefully erasing every trace of his existence. Perhaps one day, advances in investigative genealogy will finally reveal his real name. Perhaps somewhere, a family is still wondering what became of a loved one who simply vanished. Or perhaps, Peter Bergmann achieved exactly what he intended: to leave this world without leaving behind a past. One ordinary man, one false name, 3 carefully planned days, and a mystery that has outlived them all. If his true identity is ever discovered, it won't just close one of Ireland's most haunting investigations. It will answer a question that has echoed since June 2009. Who is the man who called himself Peter Bergmann?